Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have another journal with me video to share with you guys. This was a little play I did in my journal, so I don't have many pages left to use in here, and my journal has become so bulky that it's a little bit harder to use. So it's just beginning to get to the point where I'm just trying to fill in some of those last pages so that I can move into a new journal. I have a lot of loose bits and pieces laying around that I've kept from my life, so just bits of papers that can be anything from receipts, business cards, photos, wrappers, packaging, notes, just random things. And what I usually do at this point is I go through my box of bits and pieces and I pull out anything I feel I want to be in this journal, because the space in here is limited and I have to be a bit more selective about what can actually fit at this point. So on these last pages, that's what I typically tend to do in all of my journals, and that just helps me to finish up the last pages as well, which is usually the only point where I find it a little bit more tricky to use my journal, and I get a little bit more scared of how I'm using it, because I want to make sure that it's not becoming too bulky, but I also want to use it my normal way, but I have to sort of change my process a little bit to work with those last pages. So I don't have much of a story or anything very significant in this particular journal process. I'm also just playing around with the bits and pieces that I have and just trying to piece things together in a way that I think looks nice. I have a couple of copies here of paintings that I've done recently, and I just scanned those in and printed them out pretty small to use in my journal. Today's video is sponsored by Skillshare, and the paintings you see here are actually a result of the most recent class I've taken on Skillshare. So I've talked about them before, but if you're not familiar yet, Skillshare is an online learning community where you can try new projects, learn new skills, and accomplish real growth. I mentioned last time this particular class, which is a gouache florals class by Peggy Dean, and I truly learned so much from this class. The main things that I took from it were how to jump straight in with paint, so without sketching out first, and to confidently do that knowing that you can add more loose details in later. I always struggle with adding too much or too little when it comes to details, and this really helped me find a happy medium. It helped me to really enjoy the process too, and to make it more experimental without fearing the end results. So in this particular class, Peggy teaches painting florals, which is so fun and definitely appeals to my personal style, but her techniques also helped me to apply the same sort of style to painting other subjects as well. And I'm really enjoying sitting down to paint and not necessarily knowing what that end result will be, but always being really pleasantly surprised. So Skillshare has a ton of other interesting categories as well. I really love obviously looking at the painting and illustration classes, but there's also film and video, graphic design, photography, and so many more. What's really great about Skillshare is it's designed for real life, so you can take shorter classes that easily fit into your own busy routines. Skillshare is also incredibly affordable, especially when you compare it to pricey in-person classes or workshops. You can get an annual subscription for less than $10 a month, and you can take as many classes as you like for that price. So the first 500 of my subscribers to click the link in the description box will get 2 free months of premium membership. So thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and now let's get into the junk journal with me. So like I said, I'm really down to the last couple of pages in my journal, and my journal has become really bulky, so it's sort of at the point where I want to move into something else, but I also don't want to leave very many pages unused. I want to use as much of the journal as I can before I call it finished, because I don't want to waste any of those pretty papers that I've included. So I'm really just trying to fill out some of those last pages, and for me, that usually means I like to just gather my bits and pieces together and start sort of gluing things in that I don't want to be left out of this journal. I can't sort of do as much interactive stuff as I usually like to do, because then it becomes too bulky. And at this point in my journals, pretty much every single time my books are starting to get to the point where it's difficult to close them. They sort of have that alligator mouth, which I don't really like, but I always sort of end up in this position when I'm finishing my journals. So I'm trying to finish it without making it even more bulky than it already is. So I'm trying to work in a way that's a little bit more flat. I'm trying not to do as much interactive elements as I like to do, which sort of makes the process a little bit less exciting, but I still like to make the pages look visually appealing to me. And as I said, these are a couple of the paintings that I have been playing around with, but I just scanned them into my computer and then I printed them out probably about half or a little bit less than half size than the original. And I just think that's a fun way to sort of include your own like artistic elements into your journal. I don't really want to pull apart my sketchbook and put the originals into my journal, but I do like to have that element of sort of hand drawn or hand painted elements if I do have them that I've done myself, and if I'm sort of happy with how they turned out. I think it's nice to include those in my personal journal. And because I don't really have a particular story for this page, like I said before, I'm just sort of working with different elements. So some of them are bits and pieces that I just like the look of. So I've got some vintage linens there. This is from my latest vintage linen printable pack. I think it's pack 21 or 22. I think it's 21. And it's a new pack that I have in my shop. And so I'm just playing around with some of those new printable pieces. I also have some old business cards and tags and things, and I'm just trying to work out how to put them on the page in a way that looks the best. So you see me moving things around a lot and trying things. A lot of the things that I put on the page, just to see how they look, I don't end up committing to, I don't end up gluing them down, but I really like to sort of move things around and have a look at all the options that I have before I start sticking everything down. And this is a page that I had painted previously, so I think I was doing some painting and I had some of this green paint left over, so I just opened up my journal and I just went to a random page and I just used up the rest of that paint. So I just painted across the page, and I was going to do some drawing over the top of that with white pen, which you can see down the edge of the page there. But I ended up wanting to change it when I came to actually using this journal, and so I actually ended up covering that up, which I think is okay. Sometimes I feel like people get stuck on, like if they do something in their journals and they don't like it, they still feel like they have to work with it. But really, if you do something that you really don't like, you can always just cover completely over the top of it and create a whole new page essentially. So I took this piece of paper out of the Granny Chic book that I'm using to sort of cut out some imagery, and I liked that little linen image that was in the book as well, so I pulled that out and I'm going to glue that over the top of the green paint. And instead of cutting it down to fit on one page, I just folded it a little bit so that it could go across the double page and sort of sit down the middle into the crease. And then because that sits over the middle of the page, I also added some washi tape just to make sure that it was going to sit properly and it wasn't going to come away out of the center fold there. So I added some tape, and then I also have this other little journal card piece. This is a graphic 45 piece that I really like, and I glued that on the top of the other page. I initially wanted to include that piece because the green matched in well with the paint color that I had on the page, which obviously I ended up covering up, but I still liked how that fit across the top. And then I took that print out of one of the paintings that I did, and I just glued that along the bottom of the page. And then again, I took some of that same washi tape just so that I could make sure everything around that center fold of the page was going to sit really well, and so that nothing was going to get sort of bent or pulled up when I'm turning pages in my journal. And then you see me just playing around with a bunch of other bits and pieces that are on my desk. So a lot of the vintage linens, I'm seeing if I can include any more. I ended up pulling out this piece of like a glassine paper bag, and I like how this is so see-through and the texture of it and everything, so I thought I could use that as a pocket and you'll still be able to see through it, and you'll still be able to see that linen paper that I added onto the page. And this glassine paper sort of just softens that image a little bit more, and it makes it more interactive without adding too much bulk as well, because that paper is so thin. So to attach that, I just used some double-sided tape and I put that across the bottom of the page and up the sides, and I just stuck it directly onto the page rather than straight onto the glassine, because I thought it would be a little bit easier to peel off and handle. And then I added a little bit more tape again down the side there, actually because there was a little bit of double-sided tape that was sticking out of the pocket, and so I didn't want those 2 pages to stick together when I closed my book. And then I thought in this pocket I could maybe stick another linen printable, and I could use it as like a journal card, but I ended up using a different piece of paper. It was like a scrap piece of paper that I had, and I thought that I could use this to attach some of those loose business cards and things that I have that I don't really want to just throw out. And it already had a fold in it, which inspired me to make it sort of fold over the top of the pocket, and so that some of that piece of paper sort of hangs over, and I really like how that turned out. And this peachy coloured business card fits really well on that little piece that folds over the top, and it sort of matches really well with the patterns on that paper as well. So I really like that. I think it looks really cute. And then I have another really pretty little pink business card that fits well on there, and this little tag that came with something that I'd purchased, and I thought I could staple that tag over that top folded piece as well. And I like how it makes it look more layered, and you can still sort of read everything that's on the business cards. And because this little square pink business card has really pretty, both sides of it are really pretty, I just used some more washi tape so that you could lift it up, so that I didn't have to lose either side of that business card. And then that just sits inside the pocket, and I like how it looks so layered. You can see through the pocket to see what's in there. I think that's a really nice little touch. And then I was just deciding if there was anything else I could add to the page, but I feel like it's almost complete. I added just a little bit more tape along the top of that picture just to make everything sort of look a bit more smoothed out and to make sure everything was stuck down well. And then there was this little piece of grassy stuff that also came with something that I purchased, and I decided to tape that down onto the page as well. So I stuck that straight on top of the pocket, and that will sort of become like a little pressed flower, I suppose, in my journal, and I really like how that turned out. And here you can see the finished page with my little bit of journaling. Added a couple of little lines around the page, and I really like how this turned out, even though it's a super simple and quick page. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As I said, my journal's nearly done, so hopefully I'll have a whole entire journal flip through coming very soon. I hope you guys are all doing really well, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.